What does it mean to stand against the shadow when the shadow is not merely a veil cast upon the world, but a fire that burns within it? In the deep places of Middle-earth, where stone remembers the weight of ages and silence carries the echo of forgotten songs, there lies a truth both terrible and radiant. The light that defies the dark is not born of strength alone, but of sacrifice of will, of a heart that dares to hope when all hope seems lost. This is the tale of Gandalf the Grey Pilgrim and the Balrog Durin's Bane, whose clash in the depths of Moria is no mere battle, but a mirror held up to the soul of creation itself, a moment where the eternal questions of fear, burden, legacy loss, silence, temptation, faith, and hope are asked anew. Questions that echo in the hearts of all who walk the paths of this world or any other. In the beginning, before the stars were kindled, before the earth took shape, there was the music. Ilúvatar, the One sang, and the Ainur, his holy ones, joined their voices, weaving a tapestry of harmony and discord that would become the world that is. The music was not a single melody, but a chorus of themes, each voice adding its own thread to the pattern, some bright, some somber, some clashing in dissonance. Among the Ainur were the Valar mighty in power, and the Maia lesser in might, but radiant in purpose. Olorin, who would become Gandalf, was one such Maia, a spirit of wisdom who walked in the gardens of Lorien, not seeking glory, but learning pity, patience, and the quiet strength that comes from understanding the frail. He was a spark, not a flame, a guide whose power lay not in dominion, but in kindling the hearts of others. Yet there were other Maia too, who heard the dissonant strains of Melkor, the fallen Vala, and followed his call into shadow. The Balrogs, spirits of fire and wrath, were such beings, their light twisted into a blaze of ruin, their hearts bound to the chaos of their master's will. Durin's Bane. The last of their kind was no mere beast, but a creature of ancient malice, a shard of Melkor's rebellion that lingered in the deep places, nursing its wounds, its rage, and a fear it would never confess. Moria the Dwarrodelf was a kingdom hewn from the heart of the misty mountains, a marvel of craft and ambition. Its halls stretched vast and gleaming, lit by lanterns that mimicked the stars, their walls adorned with the runes of Durin's folk, Mithril. The silver light of the earth flowed like a river beneath its stones, a treasure so fair it rivaled the Silmarils in the songs of the elves. The dwarves in their pride shaped wonders axes that could cleave stone forges that sang with fire, pillars that seemed to hold up the sky itself. But pride, as it ever does, sowed the seeds of ruin. They delved too deep, seeking the veins of mithril that ran like lifeblood through the rock, driven by a hunger for beauty and wealth that blinded them to the peril below. In their greed, they woke what should have slept. Durin's Bane rose a terror of flame and shadow, its whip cracking like the breaking of the world, its sword a blaze that mocked the sun. The halls of Khazad-dûm became a tomb. The songs of the dwarves silenced their legacy, buried beneath stone. For centuries the Balrog lingered a solitary tyrant in a kingdom of dust. Its fire dimmed, but unquenched, its heart bound to the anarchy of its first master. Why then did it not rise to join Sauron, the new Dark Lord, in his war against the free peoples? The question is not one of power, but of purpose, of the subtle threads that weave the tapestry of evil. The Balrog was no servant, no creature to bend its knee to another's will, not even one as mighty as Sauron. It was a force of chaos, a flame that burned for destruction alone, not for the ordered dominion Sauron craved. Sauron, though a Maia like the Balrog, was a being of cunning and ambition, his heart set on a world bent to his design, a symphony of control where every note obeyed his will. The Balrog, loyal to Melkor's vision of ruin, sought no such order. Its fire was wild, untamed, a whirlwind of anarchy that would not march under any banner, not even one as dark as Sauron's. And there was fear, too, in the Balrog's heart, a fear it would never speak, but which bound it to the depths. The Valar had cast down Melkor, chained him in the void, and vanquished his hosts. The Balrog's once legion were no more save this lone survivor, hiding in the shadows of Moria, dreading the judgment of the powers it had betrayed. To rise to join Sauron would be to step into the light of a world that might crush it. In its silence it spoke a truth evil, though it shares a root, does not always share a path. And so we come to Gandalf the Wanderer, the spark in the twilight. He was not sent to Middle-earth to wield great power, but to kindle it in others, a mission both humble and profound. In the Third Age, as Sauron's shadow grew, Gandalf walked among men, elves and hobbits, a pilgrim clad in grey bearing a staff of ash and a secret fire. He was no warrior in the manner of kings, no sorcerer to shake the earth with spells. His strength was in his voice, his eyes, his ability to see the small, the overlooked, the fragile, a hobbit bearing a burden, a king hiding in exile, a spark of courage in a heart that doubted its own worth. He was a guide, not a ruler, a light-bearer whose flame was not his own, but a gift from Ilúvatar, the secret fire that kindles life and hope. In the courts of Rivendell he counselled wisdom. In the Shire he kindled wonder with fireworks and tales. In the halls of Theoden he broke the spell of despair. Yet his true power was not in words or deeds, but in the trust he inspired the belief that even the smallest could change the course of fate. In Moria, in the heart of the earth, Gandalf faced a trial that was his alone. The Fellowship of the Ring, fleeing the mines, stood upon the bridge of Khazad-dûm, a slender span over an abyss that seemed to swallow light itself. The air was heavy with dread, the stone cold with memory. The Fellowship. Frodo, Sam, Merry Pippin, Aragorn, Legolas, Gimli. Boromir had faced goblins and trolls, but this was different. The Balrog rose a storm of fire and shadow, its presence a weight upon the soul. Its whip lashed the air, a crack like thunder. Its sword burned with a heat that mocked the sun. Its eyes were voids, its form a nightmare woven from the fears of the First Age. The others could not stand against it. Aragorn, heir of Isildur, bore a king's courage, yet even he could only retreat his sword useless against such a foe. Legolas, with the keen eyes of the elves, saw death in the flame, his bow trembling in his hands. Boromir, proud and valiant, faltered before the terror, his shield no defence. Frodo, small and burdened, felt the ring's weight grow heavier, its malice stirring in the presence of such evil. Gimli, son of Gloin, stood frozen, the sorrow of his kin's ruin crashing upon him. But Gandalf, the Maia, the servant of the secret fire, turned to face the darkness. What is the secret fire? It is not flame as we know it, not the fire that consumes wood or flesh. It is the breath of Ilúvatar, the light of creation, the spark that kindles life and hope and meaning. It is the essence of the music, the harmony that shaped the world, the power that holds back the void. Gandalf in his essence was its bearer, its guardian, not because he was mighty, but because he was faithful. The Balrog too was a creature of fire, but its flame was twisted, born of Melkor's rebellion, a parody of the light it once served, its fire devoured. Gandalf's fire created. Its flame was chaos. Gandalf's was purpose. In their clash, we see not merely a battle of beings, but a collision of truths, the fire that creates against the fire, that destroys the light that endures against the shadow that devours. Gandalf's words upon the bridge, "You cannot pass," are not a boast, but a vow. They are the cry of a soul that knows its purpose, that understands the cost of standing firm. He did not seek this fight, but he accepted it, for to flee would be to betray the light he carried, to abandon the fellowship, to let the shadow claim the world. The bridge shattered, and Gandalf fell locked in strife with the Balrog. Down they plummeted into the abyss, into the cold waters beneath the earth where no light reached, where the weight of stone and time pressed upon them. The water was a grave, a place where hope might drown. Yet Gandalf pursued the Balrog, his flame unquenched. The battle was no longer one of swords or spells, but of will, of essence, of the core of what each was. The Balrog, a creature of rage, fought to consume. Gandalf, a servant of hope, fought to protect. Up they climbed through caverns measureless, where the roots of the mountains twisted like the bones of the world. They reached the endless stair, a spiral of stone that seemed to mock the heavens. Each step a testament to the dwarves' ambition. Now a path of strife. At last they emerged upon the peak of Ziraxigil, where the stars burned cold and clear, and the wind sang of things older than the earth. There the battle ended. For days they fought fire against fire, shadow against light, until the Balrog was slain, its body broken upon the mountain, its flame extinguished at last. But Gandalf too paid a price. His body failed, his spirit spent, and he passed beyond the circles of the world into the silence that lies beyond. Yet this was not the end. Ilúvatar in his mercy saw the faithfulness of his servant and sent him back clothed in white, no longer Gandalf the Grey, but Gandalf the White, a beacon of hope renewed. Why not because he was mighty, but because he was true. His sacrifice was not for glory, but for others, for Frodo who carried the ring, for Aragorn who would be king, for the Fellowship who faltered without him, for a world that did not yet know its own strength. He returned not as a conqueror, but as a guide, his light brighter for the darkness he had faced, his purpose clearer for the silence he had endured. In his return we see a truth. The light that endures is not the light that never falters, but the light that rises again, transformed by loss, tempered by sacrifice, radiant in its humility. What does this tale teach us? We who walk our own paths through shadow. The Balrog is not merely a monster of myth, but a symbol of the darkness we all face. The fear that lurks in silence, the temptation to surrender to despair, the chaos that whispers of ruin. It is the voice that says, "You are too small, too weak, too broken to stand." It is the weight of failure, the lure of power, the dread of loss. And Gandalf in his defiance is the answer to that voice. He is not a hero in the way of warriors, not a conqueror who bends the world to his will. He is a guide, a light bearer, one who chooses to stand when falling seems easier to speak, when silence is safer to hope, when despair is near. His flame is not his own, but a gift, a trust, a burden he carries for the sake of others. In Moria he faced not just the Balrog, but the weight of his own fear, his own doubt, his own frailty, and he chose to hold fast. Fear is the first shadow we must face, the oldest and most primal. It is not the absence of courage, but the presence of doubt, the whisper that our efforts are futile, that the darkness is too vast, that we are not enough. In Moria the Fellowship felt this fear, each in their own way. Frodo, bearing the ring, felt the weight of a world he could not escape, a burden that grew heavier with each step, its malice gnawing at his heart. Aragorn, heir to a broken throne, carried the fear of failure, of a legacy unclaimed, of a kingdom that might never rise again, of the blood of Númenor. Wasted Legolas, an elf of ancient lineage, saw in Moria the fading of his people's glory, the twilight of the Eldar, the end of an age that would never return. Gimli, son of Gloin, mourned the lost splendour of his kin. The halls of Khazad-dûm now a grave, their songs silenced by the shadow. Boromir, proud and desperate, feared for Gondor, for his people, for a city that stood alone against the tide of Mordor. And Gandalf, the wanderer, knew the fear of leading others into peril, of bearing a light that might falter, of failing those who trusted him. Yet fear, though it binds, does not define. It is a shadow, and shadows pass. Gandalf's stand upon the bridge was not the absence of fear, but the choice to act despite it. He did not know he would return, did not know his sacrifice would be rewarded. He acted because it was right, because the light he served was greater than himself, because the Fellowship, frail and faltering, needed him to stand. The burden of the ring is a thread woven through this tale, though it lies unspoken in the clash of fire and shadow. Frodo, small and unheroic, carried a weight that even Gandalf could not bear for long. The ring was not merely a trinket of power, but a temptation, a mirror that showed the heart its deepest desires. To Gandalf it offered dominion, the power to order the world as he saw fit, to bring justice and peace by force, to banish evil with a wave of his staff. Yet he refused it, knowing that even a good intention could twist into tyranny, that the ring's power was a lie, a chain disguised as a crown. The Balrog, in its way, was a creature of temptation fulfilled, a Maia who had surrendered to Melkor's vision, who had traded light for shadow creation, for destruction, freedom for servitude. Its fire was the end of all temptation, not triumph but slavery, a soul bound to its own ruin. Gandalf's victory was not merely in slaying the Balrog, but in resisting the shadow within himself, in choosing the secret fire over the fire of ambition. To bear a burden is not merely to carry it, but to carry it rightly, to hold it without letting it consume you. Frodo's journey was not Gandalf's. Yet in Moria, Gandalf's stand bought Frodo time, a moment to continue a spark of hope in the dark. The ring was Frodo's burden, but Gandalf's sacrifice was its shield, a light that held the shadow at bay. Legacy, too, haunts this tale, a question that lingers in the stones of Moria and the hearts of those who pass through it. Moria itself is a monument to the dreams and failures of Durin's folk. Its halls, once bright with mithril and song, now echo with loss, a reminder that even the greatest works can fall. The dwarves built for eternity, carving their names into the rock, forging treasures that would outlast the ages. Yet their kingdom crumbled, their names forgotten, save in sorrow their glory reduced to dust. Gandalf in his wanderings carried no kingdom, no crown, no lasting monument. His legacy was in the hearts he kindled, the hope he sowed, the small acts that rippled through the world. When he fell, he left no heir, no throne. Yet his light endured, carried by those he had guided, by Frodo who bore the ring, by Aragorn who would be king, by Sam who would carry Frodo when he could not go on. The Balrog, by contrast, left nothing but ruin, its fire consuming all it touched, its name a curse rather than a song. What is legacy then, but the choice to build or to destroy, to lift others up or to cast them down? Gandalf's flame was not his own, but it burned for others, and in its burning it endured. We too leave legacies not in stone or song, but in the lives we touch, the choices we make, the light we share or withhold. To live is to leave a mark, and to choose whether that mark will be a wound or a blessing. Loss is the silence that follows the shadow that lingers where light once shone. In Moria the Fellowship mourned Gandalf, believing him lost forever. Aragorn, thrust into leadership, felt the weight of a world without the guide who had steadied him. The fear that he was not enough to lead Frodo, already burdened, felt the sting of abandonment. The fear that he was alone, that the ring's weight would crush him without Gandalf's wisdom. Gimli wept for the glory of his kin. Now dust the halls of Khazad-dûm, a grave that mocked his pride. Legolas, whose people knew loss, saw in Moria the fate of all things fair, the fading of the Eldar, the end of an age. Boromir, torn by duty and desire, felt the loss of hope, the fear that Gondor would fall without a miracle. Yet loss, like fear, is not the end. It is a space, a pause, a moment where the heart must choose to go on. Gandalf's return as the White was not a reversal of loss, but a transformation through it. He did not come back unchanged, but renewed, his light brighter for the darkness he had faced, his purpose clearer for the silence he had endured. So it is with us. Loss strips us bare, reveals the fragility of all we hold dear. Yet in its silence we find the strength to carry on, to bear the light we thought was gone. Loss is not the end of hope, but its crucible, the place where hope is tested and refined, where the soul learns to sing again. Silence itself is a presence in this tale, a force as potent as fire or shadow. Moria is a place of silence, its halls empty, its songs stilled, its stones bearing witness to a glory lost. The Balrog, too, is a creature of silence, lurking in the deep, speaking no words, its will expressed in flame and wrath. Its silence is not peace but dread, a void that swallows hope. Gandalf, though a voice of counsel, knew silence too, the silence of doubt, of waiting, of bearing a purpose he could not fully share. In the abyss, in the cold waters beneath the earth, there was silence. A moment where the world held its breath, where the clash of fire and shadow paused. Silence is not emptiness, but a space where meaning gathers, where the soul listens for the song that shaped it. In our own lives, silence is the moment before choice, the pause before courage, the stillness where we hear the call to stand, to speak, to act. It is the space where faith is born, where the heart, stripped of all distraction, must decide what it will serve. Silence is the canvas of creation, the breath before the music, the moment where the light of Ilúvatar shines clearest. Faith in Tolkien's world is not blind belief, but trust in a light beyond our seeing. Gandalf's faith was in the secret fire, in the will of Ilúvatar, in the small and humble things that could change the world. He did not know he would return from death. Yet, he stood upon the bridge, his staff raised, his voice steady. He did not know Frodo would succeed. Yet, he trusted in the hobbit's heart, in the strength that comes from frailty. The Balrog, by contrast, had no faith, only rage, only the memory of a master who had failed, only the chaos of a rebellion that had crumbled. Faith is the flame that burns when all else fades, the choice to act when the outcome is uncertain. It is the courage to say, "I am a servant of the secret fire," and to mean it. Though the shadow looms, though the abyss yawns, though the world seems lost. Faith is not the absence of doubt, but the choice to act despite it, to trust in a purpose greater than oneself. Gandalf's faith was not in his own strength, but in the light. He served a light that did not belong to him alone, but to all who would carry it. Temptation, too, is a shadow in this tale, subtler than fear, more insidious than loss. The ring was its greatest symbol, a circle of gold that promised power, control, the ability to shape the world to one's will. To Gandalf it whispered of a world made right of evil, banished by his hand, of a peace enforced by his wisdom. Yet he saw the lie within the promise, the truth that power even wielded for good corrupts, that the ring's gift was a chain, its freedom a cage. The Balrog was a creature of temptation, fulfilled a Maia who had surrendered to Melkor's vision, who had traded light for shadow creation, for destruction, freedom for servitude. Its fire was the end of all temptation, not triumph but slavery, a soul bound to its own ruin. Gandalf's stand was not merely against the Balrog, but against the temptation to become like it, to wield power for its own sake, to let the fire of ambition consume the fire of hope. To resist temptation is not to deny desire, but to choose a higher purpose, to serve the light rather than the self. In our own lives, temptation takes many forms: pride, anger, the lure of control, the whisper that we can be more by taking more. But its question is always the same. Will you serve the light or the shadow within? Hope, then, is the final note in this song, but it is not a triumphant chord. It is a quiet thing, a whisper, a spark that glimmers in the dark. Gandalf's hope was not in victory, but in endurance, in the belief that the light could outlast the shadow, that the small could defy the great. When he fell, he did not know the fellowship would go on yet. He fought for them, his staff a beacon, his voice a shield. When he returned, he did not promise triumph, only guidance, only the chance to fight another day. Hope in Middle-earth is not the absence of despair, but the choice to carry on despite it. It is Frodo taking one more step toward Mordor, though his heart falters, though the ring's weight bends his soul. It is Aragorn drawing his sword, though Gondor teeters on the edge of ruin, though the shadow of Mordor looms. It is Gandalf facing the Balrog, though the abyss yawns, though his strength wanes. It is the Flame of Anor, the light that defies the shadow. Not because it is strong, but because it is true, because it is shared, because it burns for others. And so we stand like Gandalf upon the bridge at the edge of our own abysses. The shadow is ever present, fear, doubt, temptation, loss, silence, despair. It takes many forms, but its question is always the same. Will you stand, or will you fall? The Balrog is not merely a creature of Moria, but a reflection of the chaos we carry, the fire that threatens to consume the voice that whispers of ruin. Yet within us too is the secret fire, the spark of Iluvatar, the light that does not belong to us alone. To bear it is a burden, a sacrifice, a choice that asks everything, our strength, our courage, our hope. Yet it is also a gift, a flame that burns brighter for the darkness it faces, a song that grows sweeter for the silence it breaks. We are not called to conquer the shadow, but to defy it, to carry the light, one step further to kindle it in others when our own strength fails. We are not asked to be mighty, but to be true, to stand, though the bridge crumbles to hope, though the stars are hidden. This tale does not end in triumph, for the world is not so simple. Gandalf's victory was not the end of shadow, nor Frodo's journey the end of pain. The Balrog fell, but other evils rose, Sauron's armies, the Nazgûl, the Ring's malice. The Ring was destroyed, but Middle-earth changed its glories, fading into memory. The elves departed their light dimming in the west, their songs carried on the wind to Valinor. The dwarves did not reclaim Moria, their halls left to silence their legacy, a whisper in the stone. Aragorn became king, but his reign was not the end of strife, only a pause, a moment of light before the long twilight of men. Yet in that fading there is a revelation, a truth that lingers like a song half remembered. The light endures not because it conquers, but because it is shared. Gandalf's flame was not his own, but it burned for others, and in its burning it became eternal. Frodo's sacrifice, though it broke him, saved a world he would never fully know. Aragorn's kingship, though hard won, was not for himself, but for those who would come after, for a hope that outlasted his days. So it is with us. The shadows we face are real, their fires fierce, their voices loud. Fear whispers that we are not enough. Temptation offers power at a price. Loss leaves us hollow. Silence leaves us alone. Yet the light we carry is not ours alone. It is a gift, a trust, a song that began before the world and will echo beyond its end. To bear, it is to know fear, to carry a burden, to face loss, to stand in silence, to resist temptation, to hold faith, to kindle hope. It is to stand upon the bridge, though the abyss yawns, and to say, "You cannot pass, not because we are strong, but because we are true." It is to light a spark in another's heart, to carry on. Though the way is dark, to hope, though the stars are hidden. In the silence of Moria, in the clash of fire and shadow, we hear the echo of our own hearts. What does it mean to resist the darkness? It is to stand, though the bridge crumbles. It is to bear the light, though the burden is heavy. It is to hope, though the world falters. It is to know in the deepest part of the soul that the flame of Anor, the secret fire, burns still unquenched, unbroken, eternal. And so, as the song fades, I invite you, fellow wanderers of Middle-earth, to carry this light with you. If this tale has stirred your heart, if the fire of Gandalf's stand burns within you, then join us in this journey through Tolkien's world, where we explore the mythic, the moral, the eternal truths woven into these stories. Subscribe to our channel, where we delve into the songs of the elves, the courage of men, the hope of hobbits, and the light that defies the shadow. Share this video with those who seek the secret fire, those who stand at their own bridges, facing their own Balrogs. Leave a comment to share your own reflections. What shadows have you faced? What flames have you kindled? What hopes have you carried through the dark? Together, let us bear the light, not for ourselves, but for the world that waits beyond the shadow. Until the next tale, farewell, and may the stars guide your path.